All right, and looking at number 4. Number 4 is really no different than number 3, except, the problems might be a little bit more varied and maybe a couple of them might be a little bit harder. But here we go. Again, don't feel like you need to watch from start to end. Maybe look at the first one, try out some of the other ones. You can fast forward, you can pause, you can rewind, you can replay, wherever you need to. So, looking at number 4a, trying to use all the exponent properties again. We basically have a big old product. We have a bunch of stuff multiplied together, and that whole product is raised to a 3. The first thing I want to do here is take everything inside of this parentheses, this whole product, and raise everything to the 3. Everything that is inside that parentheses is going to have to apply that exponent of 3 to it. So when we do that, remember this right here, this -4, you can think of it as a -4 all raised to the 3 here, or you can think of it as a -1 times 4. Either way, it's really not going to make too much of a difference here, but let's go ahead and do that. So everything, I'm going to write this all out. -4, that's going to be raised to the 3. And then I'm going to have the x to the -6, which is in there. That's also going to be raised to the 3. And then I'm going to have my y to the 0 raised to the 3. And I'm going to have my z to the 5th raised to the 3. Okay. Now some people will bypass that step because once you get more fluent and you get better at just exponent properties in general, you can maybe jump to the next step. But I would definitely say, write this step out, especially when you're first, doing these problems. Okay, so and then we can just kind of break up and do one at a time. So this right here, -4, cubed. So that's going to become, -64. Now I'm just going to use my exponent properties. So this is going to be x to the, I'm going to multiply those. So that's -18. Then I'm going to have y to the 0 times 3, which is 0. Then I'm going to have z to the 15th. Now one thing we haven't talked about yet is something raised to the 0. This should have been one of our properties here. If I have anything raised to the 0, and we can talk about this when we get back to class, anything raised to the 0 is always going to equal 1. Anything raised to the 0 is always equal just to 1. So that right there is equal to 1. We're going to go ahead and bring everything else down. So I'm going to have z to the 15th stay basically the same thing. I'm going to have x to the -18th. Remember, I don't want negative exponents here. So I'm going to change this. Instead of x to the -18th, I'm going to go ahead and change it to a 1 over x to the +18th. And I'm going to bring down the -64 as well. I don't have to do anything with that. Just going to leave it as -64. And again, if I want a little bit of consistency here, I can always put like over 1 so that I have these fractions that I can visualize with tops and bottoms. I have 1 here, so that's really just 1 over 1. And I can put an over 1 here if I want. So really I'm done here. I'm just going to put this together, put the tops, the numerators together, and the denominators together as well. So I'm going to have -64 z to the 15 on the top, and on the bottom I have x to the 18th. That's going to be it. Okay, so the next one, part B. So now we have a division problem. We have a quotient here, and again, everything is raised to the 3. So we're kind of adding another layer. So we can kind of break this up as that since everything is raised to the 3, we can break it up as the top, or 2x to the 4th, is raised to the 3. And then we're going to take the bottom 5y cubed, and that whole thing is also raised to the 3. So we can take that cube and then just apply it to the top and bottom. Then when we do that, you can look at just the top part, and everything here, again, that means the 2 and the x to the 4th will have to be raised to the 3, and then the bottom, the same thing happens there. So really every term inside of that is going to be raised to the 3. So we look at the top here, and since we have 2x to the 4th cubed, we're going to have 2 cubed times x, and we have 2 to the 4th, 2 to the 3, so we're going to multiply. That's going to become to the 12. And then on the bottom, we're going to have 5, that has to be cubed, and then the y cubed has to be raised to the 3 as well, so that's going to be multiplication, so y to the 9th. And that's really our answer. So if we clean it up a little bit, we can evaluate that 2 cubed to 8, 8x to the 12 over 125 y to the 9th. All right, let's look at part C. Part C is very similar to part B. So again, we have a quotient, we have a fraction, but that is raised to the 3. So I would break that up into two things. The top, negative 3, x to the negative 2, that whole thing is going to be cubed. And then the bottom, we have 5y is also going to be all cubed. And then we have to do the top first and apply that 3 to everything inside. So we're going to have negative 3 cubed times x to the, and we have negative 2 times 3, so that's going to be raised to the negative 6 because we're going to multiply. And then on the bottom, we're going to have 5 cubed y cubed. So on the top here, we have negative 3 cubed. We can evaluate that, and that's going to give us negative 27. And we're going to have x to the negative 6 over 125 y cubed. Or not to the 6, cubed. So then the other thing that we want to do is take negative exponents. So this right here, because that is a negative exponent, we're going to make that into a positive exponent, and we're going to drop it to the other side. So the process is going to be, let's say this goes to here. Okay, but as soon as we take this and we drop it underneath, we can then make that a positive 6. So now we have negative 27 over 125, and we have y cubed x to the 6. So if we clean that up a little bit, we could probably write our answer as negative 27 on the top, 125 is on the bottom, and then I'll say this is x to the 6th, y cubed as my final. All right, and then lastly, looking at part D, what we're doing here is we're multiplying two fractions. So typically when we multiply fractions, we're going to multiply the tops together and then the bottoms together. Now you can see here that there's really no common basis to multiply across here. So you can do it a couple different ways. The way that I'm going to do it is just to really push these fractions together and write it as one fraction. So that's the first step I'm going to take. So if I multiply the tops together, I'm going to have basically 4x to the 4th. Well, actually, let's take that back. I'm going to multiply the 4 and the 3. So that's going to become 12. And then I have an x to the 4th, and I have a y to the negative 1. So nothing's really combining there but the 4 times the 3. And this is going to be divided by, I have a negative 6, and then I'm going to multiply, we have x to the negative 1, and over here we have x to the negative 2. So that I can combine. When I multiply those together, we're going to add the exponents. So now I'm going to have x to the negative 1 plus negative 2. So that's negative 3. And I still have a y to the 5 there. Now I'm at this stage where I have one fraction, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of treat these problems as separate kind of problems here. So I'm going to have a 12 over negative 6. I'm going to take those numbers and just go ahead and simplify that. So I have 12 over negative 6, and those numbers I can evaluate. I know that's going to be negative 2. Then I'm going to take the x's in the middle here. If I take x to the 4th and I divide that by x to the negative 3, I know that when I divide, I have to subtract exponents. So this is going to become x to the 4 minus negative 3. So that's to the 7. Then I'm going to take my y's separately. And I'm going to have y to the negative 1 minus 5. So that's y to the negative 6. So my answer is really right here. Again, if I want to make it proper, so to speak, I'm going to take this x to the negative 6, and I'm going to write that as 1 over y to the positive 6, so that I can make my exponent positive. Everything else I'm going to keep the same. And then so my answer is going to be negative 2 x to the 7 on the top, the numerator, and then the denominator, I'm just going to be left with that y to the 6 that dropped down. So there's that last problem.